All right. Well, I think we've pretty much then been able to come up with a finalized building layout, which is great. And we have pretty close to a final revision on the budget. We just need to do a few more conversations between Weaver, the builder, and the architect to get some questions answered on a few things that showed up in the last revision. And then we can hopefully in our next meeting and go around have a finalized budget to be able to present. And Weaver has said once they have a finalized budget, then in conversation with the architect and us, they can give us a whole timeline for construction and the construction agreement for us to review, and we can keep moving forward.
Is that timeline affected? By the way, Kanetta joined.
Hi, Kanetta.
Hey, is that timeline affected? Like, did they give obviously a revised estimate for when they could start from a break ground perspective, or are we still assuming? Because I know I missed the April 1st meeting. Are we still assuming our original date for groundbreaking?
In the last meeting, Weaver, others can speak up if you understood what they were telling us any different, but it seemed like they were taking in all the recommendations as much as possible, but they were sort of saying that they were adjusting their work environment requirements based on COVID, but basically saying it wasn't slowing them down. So they were willing to keep progressing and wanted to just make sure that everything was still a go on our side of it. Understanding that sometimes, because of the financial side of COVID, that some of their clients may want to put a pause on things, but it was our consensus that we just wanted to keep moving forward.
Gotcha.
I remember them saying that they would have fewer people on site at one time. So they have to limit the number of people on site.
So that's probably why they need the revised timeline to adjust the timeline to the new work environment.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my guess is that we may still break ground around the same time, but the whole timeline may be extended. That's very probable. They didn't exactly come out and say that, but I would think that would be probably a high probability.
So then that would definitely impact our plans and our thoughts around the probability of us to be in the facility when and how we want to communicate when we would have readiness for, community availability.
Yes. The one good thing is I think that when they give us a timeline, I think my guess is they will probably do their best to try to figure that out, although COVID is causing everybody to sort of do their best guessing right now. So we may want to try to cushion that as best we can also. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we may want to try to be conservative on the, trying to make sure we're not booking events and that kind of thing. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with COVID and weddings and events anyhow. Because we're kind of turning the corner to those sort of recommendations starting to come out in the next week or so. It'll be interesting to see how that affects our whole plan too. We may have to delay that or pivot what we're doing in that regard as well.
Well, and I think we have to be prepared if they, even if what we look at on the international news in regards to what's happening in China and other places where they're saying we may see an uptick or a resurgence in the fall, May going into early next year. Not that we would necessarily see a quarantine, but people may shy away from large scale public events, that we may not have the quantity of public events that we were hoping to have to sustain, from that perspective, based on the, the way people are going to move forward until there is something like a vaccine or something like that to, put people at ease in a community gathering kind of situation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think we're just going to have to really keep an eye on the recommendations. And I mean, people are at some point, life is going to have to continue to move on as much as possible. And the first thing that crossed my mind was maybe in some way we might be able to position ourselves to be a solution to that, because we are a smaller scale facility. Maybe we could fit a emerging need in that people will still be getting married, but maybe in a smaller gathering sort of scale. So maybe, people might want to have weddings where you have 30 people there, and they want to be doing it in an event center that holds 300 people. So maybe we can market ourselves that way, or maybe we can become that. I don't know. We'll have to.
Well, and maybe we take an opportunity too to look at our when we talked about our bandwidth and what we're doing with media, there could be possibilities too to look at, as people are using, remote, maybe people are unwilling to travel. Maybe we look at being innovative and, hey, you can, do a big screen Zoom, right, to bring in people to see your wedding. Something like that, and be innovative in kind of introducing a new concept, right? Like, hey, come meet with us. You can have a small gathering, but a large gathering in a, what I mean? Kind of have a party, but, 10 people, but invite 20 people via Zoom to come see your event at the same time. So you can have a small gathering, but a large gathering at the same time.
Yeah, I think that we really have an opportunity to potentially do that, because we're going to be in the middle of building during the time period that all of this is getting figured out. So we won't have to retrofit an existing building for something like that. We might be able to build the technology into our building, like you're suggesting. That's a really interesting thought. Yeah.
Have some cameras positioned in a way that it would afford that as an, as a capability.
Yeah, for sure. If only we had an IT director from a major bank as a part of one of our trustees.
If only.
Yeah.
So we can definitely look at that and talk about that from a planning perspective. I think with the availability of the technology, it wouldn't be a huge cost based on what we've budgeted. I think it's more going to be around the planning and the marketing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, go ahead, Debbie.
Well, this is just a question. Did we actually have a starting date, or was it just more of a general start of breaking ground sometime in the spring?
What was that? Say it again. I'm sorry.
Did we actually have a starting date with Weaver, or was it more a general, we hope to break ground in the spring?
We did not have an actual starting date. He was saying something about mid-May to early June.
Yeah, I'm with Carol. I think that was my recollection as well.
We won't have an actual starting date until all of those papers are signed and the bids are done and the contract is signed. We won't get a starting date.
I know what I was going to say. I remember when, before all of this, I was sitting down in the meeting to try to generate an estimate with the audio visual guy for this building project. And at one point, as he was going through the checklist of things that he thought we should at least go through and consider, one of the items on his checklist was live streaming our services, or that sort of component. And he went through that. He mentioned that, and I said, "Oh, that would be really nice. Something I'm sure maybe we could get into in the future." Blah blah blah. Yeah, right.
The future is here.
Yeah, the future's now. So I'm agreeing with you, Kaneda. I think we may realize as this progresses on that we need to really investigate that, especially as we're building this building, and try to just embrace it, I guess.
Well, and like I said, it becomes a selling point, right? Especially if people, and it's not something that, even if we think past COVID, people oftentimes, if you're having a wedding, you may have members of your family that are in other states that can't join you. It becomes something that you could use as a selling point. Like, hey, you could have members join you from across the country, across the world, you know what I mean, to join your event. We have that capability. I think even if you think past, I mean, obviously it'll, from a short-term perspective, be the new norm. But from a long-term perspective, it's definitely going to bring us as a technology leader within, from a capability perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that, go ahead, Greg.
I want to say it was that Cheryl once periscoped a wedding ceremony in Oklahoma for some people here in Ohio who couldn't go because of an indigent care situation. So the mother and the father of the bride could not travel to Oklahoma for the wedding, but they still got to see the wedding. That kind of situation.
Yep, exactly.
Meant the world to that couple.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on. It has a lot of short-term benefit, but also long-term, Kaneda. I think you're right as I'm thinking about the implications that I think that in the short term, we've all gotten used to this sort of way of living and been forced to embrace this technology in such a way that it's become integrated into our lives in such a way that I think long-term it will just be a natural part of our lives, or when it's there, we just will have less aversion to it. So you're right. I think I'm agreeing with you. I think that's very true.
So then the question is tactically, we just talked about the budget and how we were. Do we need to look at, and I don't know that we do, but when you talk to the audiovisual visual person, did he feel that we needed to make adjustments to the budget to support that live streaming capability? Or did he feel that we had sufficiently budgeted to support something like that?
The audiovisual part of the budget we have right now does not include any of that, because I think at the time I said that'd be something nice to add in the future, but not something we need to include in this budget because we're trying to watch our budget and the numbers. So to pursue that, I would need to go back to him and say, hey, because of coronavirus, we're reconsidering that. Even in the long term, can you give us some sense of what that would cost to add?
I think it's worth at least getting what those numbers would look like. And then if we need to reevaluate or maybe do a special fund for it, communicate to, if it's not significant, look, to get donations for it, but whatever, but at least know what the numbers are so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
If we were trying to live stream something from our building, does that make us reconsider the difference in the data conduits from the road to the building?
I think the data conduits, it's going to depend on, I don't know. I mean, that's really tough. Does anyone know that if we have fiber yet in Green?
I don't.
Because I know they were running something with all along the roadsides. I know it's not available in my neighborhood because it would sure, from that perspective, I think it depends on what services are going to be available. Do we know from a service provider perspective what's going to be available, and from to us?
I have some information. Dana's right here. Tell me again, fiber in green.
AT&T.
AT&T is running fiber.
Has fiber, gigabit fiber to green to this area that my house, I just signed up for. $50 a month gets me gigabit up and down fiber to the house.
So I'm wondering. Yeah, so ask Dan if he agrees that from a conduit perspective, if they have fiber availability, I don't think we need dual conduits, because fiber you don't have to worry about the size of the cable. Fiber is just running, we should just need the one cable, and I would recommend that we go with fiber from a bandwidth perspective.
I have Brad here, and he has a opinion on the subject.
Go for it.
If anyone cares. I was just going to say that a lot of these companies if there is no fiber run, this is for commercial now, not residential, they will run it and not charge you. When I started at Omega and started doing the IT stuff, they wanted like 20 to 30 grand, and they were going to incorporate it as part of our contract. And now, like 3 or 4 years later, maybe a little more, they said that they removed those charges and said that they'd make the run down there and they wouldn't bill it back to us. So, and then yes, it is one cable, so there's just one cable that runs to the building because it runs on one line.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm thinking. I definitely think we have one, but should we? The question is, should we contact the provider first to get that information before we make the decision? What do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever ISPs you have is an option.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We might as well.
Yeah. They'll be able to tell you everything they have to offer, and they might even assign you a customer service representative. We do, because we have so much going on in our building that we need one. So.
Yeah, so I think that makes the most sense, Joel, is to reach out to the providers and then find out what they're, to your point, they might assign a rep, and then figure out what the best deal is, and then they'll say, hey, this is what we can offer, and this is what the best deal is going to be, and then this is what you need in order to support that deal. But I almost highly doubt we're going to need two.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds great. We can definitely do that. What else? So it sounds like it's AT&T. I was just looking at the chats. Jen said that Dan said it's probably AT&T.
Brad said that's good, that it's AT&T.
They're all the same. AT&T's, I mean, really, you can have a bad experience with any of them, but AT&T's really been the best that I've experienced. So, go Pat, go.
Well, there's one benefit to video conferencing. We get people's spouses giving us advice in the background. I was on a video conference. In my house, you get this. Hey, okay. No advice. No advice. Just interruption. Hey. Thank you. Thank you. Lock the door and throw away the key. Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. Okay. So I think right now, at least, I have the rough plan is for us every couple weeks to do this, and the I'll keep an eye on all these recommendations as they come out. It sounds like Governor DeWine is going to have some recommendations for us in the next couple press conferences that he has on what starts to happen here in Ohio. So we're just going to kind of keep an eye on that and how it relates to and affects the church. But as far as the building is concerned, we'll just keep in communication with Weaver and keep following up on these things to keep them moving forward. So I don't know. That's the plan so far. Anybody else have any thoughts on anything else going on in the life of the church or yada, yada, yada? Okay. Well,
Hey, I just wanted to say, Joel, I think the kids, Rohan's really enjoying the youth group on Sundays with the kids. So I appreciate the fact that Kevin's doing that.
good.
I
Thank
don't
you.
know. Do we have any plans to do that with some of the younger ones? I know it's probably a little bit more challenging, but that would be, I don't know if that's something we necessarily have to do every week, but maybe a check-in with some of the younger kids.
Yeah, that is a good thought. It's it's been interesting. That's kind of been happening informally. There, a bunch of our kids are on uh, Facebook Messenger for kids, and they've been all calling each other. And like Jubilee had a birthday party last night, and they all played Minecraft online together. And like Reed was on there with them, and they were, I don't know, they're all like way more tech savvy than I am. And Sarah and I were talking about that like they all Jubilee was teleporting them all to each other in Minecraft, and I had no idea what she was doing. So, yeah, they're kind of like informally doing that. But and then Liz has been sending the like Sunday lessons in the mail to each of the kids also. So some has been happening, but it's kind of been just roughly put together. If we realize what this is going to look like on a more extended basis, then yeah, we will probably begin talking about how we need to adapt to that and start trying to get them all together on a regular basis.
Okay, and it's been good for us because you guys know that my guys go to a Hindi school. So because they're doing it online now, it was at the same time. So it was beneficial for us because at 1 o'clock when Kevin does it, that was a good time for us. But so Rohan's been able to attend them all. But if you're doing anything by mail, if you could include Neela, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Absolutely.
And even if we did, I know that we record, and even if maybe we had some recorded items that I could have her watch, that would be awesome as well.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. Very good. I think we're good for tonight. We'll see you all either on Sunday or we'll do this leadership meeting again in a couple weeks. Tonight was Thursday just because Jubilees was on Wednesday, but I'll try to send out an email sooner rather than later just with a link and information about our next leadership meeting. But the plan is it wouldn't be this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that. So it would be the 29th of April would be the plan. So before May 1st when all hell breaks loose, I guess. I don't know. All right. Thank you all. Have a good night. Appreciate it. Stay in touch. Stay safe.
You too. Take care, everybody. Talk to you
All
later.
right. You too.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Sounds good. I'll see y'all later.
Bye-bye. See ya.
See ya.
Okay. Yeah, no.